Oga, push your baby now. Push. Don't stress me, abeg.
Madam, I'm trying, oh, please, oh, it's painful, oh.
Push again. Oga, come back here. Come and push your baby.
Madam, I don't do again, oh. God bless all women, oh.
You must push.
The pain.
That is not the beginning. Let me take you back. But please make sure you subscribe to our channel for more beautiful stories like this. I am Christy Midnight Tales. Asaruko was not just any village. It was a land people from neighboring communities spoke about with pride and envy. The soil was dark and rich. Crops grew easily there. Yam bands stood tall. Cassava farms stretched beyond sight. And the women, they were known for their strength in childbearing. It was said that in Asaruko, barrenness feared the land. The women traded in nearby markets, wove baskets with swift fingers, and raised children who grew into strong farmers and hunters. Life was simple, but it was full. But beneath that peace, a quiet tension had started growing. The men had begun to complain. At first, it was murmurs among themselves at the village square. Then whispers while returning from the farms. Then open grumbling during evening palm wine gatherings. Their wives, they said, had become lazy. Pregnancy had turned into an excuse. They would wake before dawn, carry hoes and cutlasses, bend their backs under the hot sun, and walk until their bones ached. But when they returned home, what did they meet? Empty pots, unwashed plates, children running around untended, and their wives lying down, resting, sleeping. Some men would stand at their doorways, anger burning in their eyes. You slept all day again? Another would snap. Pregnancy is not sickness. Is it not just carrying a baby? The frustration began to boil over. Some men started shouting more often. Some threw plates. Some stormed out of the house, and some raised their hands. The women rarely fought back. They would sit quietly, holding their stomachs, eyes heavy, bodies tired in a way words could not explain. But the men did not see it. To them, pregnancy was a natural thing. Their mothers did it. Their grandmothers did it. They farmed and cooked even while carrying babies. So why were these women acting weak? The complaints spread across the entire village until it became the only thing men talked about. Even the elders noticed. One evening, under the large udara tree at the center of Asaruko, the men gathered. Voices rose one after another. My wife no longer sweeps. My children eat late every day. She says she's tired. Tired of what? I am the one farming from morning till night. Murmurs of agreement followed each complaint. Then one man, older and louder than the rest, stood up. This cannot continue, he said firmly. Silence fell. We cannot keep suffering like this in our own homes. That was when the decision was made. They would take the issue to the king. The king of Asaruko was not just a ruler. He was believed to be a bridge between the people and the unseen forces that protected the land. If something was wrong in the village, he would know what to do. If balance had been broken, he would restore it. The next morning, a group of men prepared themselves and walked toward the palace. Their faces were serious, their voices heavy with frustration. They were tired, angry, convinced they were right. None of them knew that the very complaints they carried would soon turn their world upside down. One after the other, they spoke. Our wives have changed, one man said, his chest rising with irritation. Since they became pregnant, they no longer wake early. They no longer cook on time. They complain about every little pain. Another stepped forward, shaking his head. We go to the farm from morning till night. We carry loads. We sweat under the sun. But they lie down and say they are tired. Pregnancy is not sickness. Our mothers gave birth and still walked. These ones just want to be pampered. Voices overlapped. Complaints poured out. Frustration filled the air. When the last complaint faded and the courtyard grew still, the king raised his hand slowly. I have heard your grievances. This matter is deeper than quarrels in a household. It touches life itself. It touches pain, sacrifice, and responsibility. The men listened, nodding. Some folded their arms, confident already. I will consult the wise gods, the king continued. Their judgment is final. Their decision will be passed at sunrise tomorrow. There was a murmur among the men. Relief, satisfaction, even pride. They bowed and began leaving the palace in groups, their voices already rising again, louder than before. Outside the palace gates, their confidence grew. You see, The king understands. He knows we are suffering. Tomorrow everything will change. As they walked back into the village, their complaints turned into mockery. Some laughed, some shook their heads in disbelief. Pregnancy is not sickness, one man repeated loudly, so the women at home could hear. Another added, we provide everything, food and shelter. Is it not just to carry a baby? That sentence echoed in many homes that evening. Before the sun even rose fully, the palace drums sounded across the village, deep, heavy, commanding. Everyone knew it was time. Men arrived first, walking fast, their faces full of expectation. They whispered among themselves, smiling, already imagining the king's verdict in their favor. Women followed behind, slower, uncertain, some still weak from sleepless nights, some carrying children, some holding their stomachs. The courtyard filled quickly. No one joked, no one shouted. They waited. Then the king stepped out. He wore white, a sign of purity and divine consultation. In his hand was his staff. Behind him stood the chief priest and the elders, their faces serious, their eyes unreadable. The atmosphere changed immediately. This was no longer complaint. This was judgment. The king lifted his staff slightly, and the entire courtyard fell into silence. I have spoken with the wise gods, he said. The gods listened, they watched, they measured the suffering of both men and women. They examined duty and balance. The gods say that no burden should be mocked by those who have never carried it. A few men exchanged glances. Confusion began to creep in. The gods say that pain cannot be understood from a distance. Then he declared, from this day forward, the burden of childbearing and menstrual flow shall be passed to the men. The words landed slowly, heavy, unreal, both young and old. Gasps broke out. Some men laughed in disbelief. Some shook their heads. One even whispered, this must be a test. But the king's face remained unchanged. There was no smile, no sign of humor, only authority. And the women, he continued, his voice firm, shall now take charge of the household. They will farm on the farmlands, they will provide food and shelter, they will become the providers. The courtyard froze. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. The men stood still, their confidence draining, replaced by shock, creeping slowly across their faces.
The morning the village woke up, it did not wake up to rooster cries. It woke up to screaming. Deep, terrified, confused screaming. From one hut to another. From old men, from young men, from boys whose voices had not even broken. At first, the women thought thieves had invaded, but when they rushed outside, they saw grown men clutching their stomachs, bent, sweating, shaking. Old Papa Nana, who used to boast that pregnancy was just small discomfort, was on the ground, holding his waist like his spine had split in two. Young husbands ran out of their huts, wrappers barely tied, eyes wide like hunted goats. And then, the little boys. The boys came out slowly, one by one, looking down at their wrappers. Red stains, fresh, bright. Their small faces twisted in confusion. Mother, something is wrong. Their voices trembled, and that was when the women understood. The gods had answered. The women did not scream. They did not panic. They looked at each other. Then they laughed. Not wicked laughter, not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes when justice finally knocks. For years they had heard, pregnancy is not sickness. Why can't you cook? Why are you always tired? You only carry baby, we carry farm. Now the farm had shifted, and so had the burden. At first, the men tried to adapt. They tied wrappers properly. They told themselves it would pass. It is small stomach pain, they said. But by afternoon, the pain had started crawling from their lower backs to their ribs. By evening, some were vomiting. 2 days later, the complaints became louder than harmattan wind. They could not bend to fetch water. They could not bend to cook. They could not sit too long. They could not sleep properly. Their stomachs were swelling already. Their breasts tender. Their legs heavy. Meanwhile, the women woke before sunrise, carried hoes, went to the farm, provided food and shelter. Some men, too tired to cook, sneaked to neighbors' huts to beg for food. But when they reached there, they met other men, also pregnant, also hungry. There was no food to borrow because every hut had the same problem. The boys were not spared. They cried at night from menstrual pain. They rolled on mats, whispering, "It burns, it burns." The fathers, who once mocked cramps, now trembled from it. The village, once loud with male authority, had become quiet with male suffering. By the third day, the men gathered. They could not bear it. They walked slowly, carefully,
supporting their backs, holding their stomachs. Even the elders among them struggled to stand straight. They marched back to the palace of the king, the same palace where they once stood proudly demanding justice against their lazy wives. Now their voices were weaker. Your Majesty, they knelt, not in pride, but in pain. Please, tell the gods to take back this judgment. Our bonds are breaking. Our bodies are not built for this. The king looked at them long, silent. His eyes were not cruel, but they were firm. You said pregnancy is nothing. You said providing food is harder. Now the earth has balanced itself. The men bowed their heads. We were wrong. Take it away. The king rose slowly. His voice echoed across the courtyard. Your fate is no longer in my hands. The men looked up sharply. It is now in the hands of the women. A ripple passed through the crowd. The women will decide, in 4 market days, whether you continue like this or whether the gods will return things to how they were. The men went home that evening with heavy steps. No shouting, no pride, just silence. They held their swollen backs as they walked. At home, the women continued life. They woke before sunrise, they carried hoes to the farm, they tilled the land, they harvested cassava, they bargained in the market. And in the evenings, when the sky turned orange and tired bodies returned from the fields, the women would sit outside in groups, laughing softly, discussing the price of yam, talking about how hard the sun was that day. Meanwhile, inside the huts, men struggled. One tried to bend and winced in pain. Another dropped the pot because his waist refused to cooperate. Back pains, swollen feet, sleepless nights. Is it not just to carry a baby? The words they once used against their wives echoed back at them like mockery. 4 days passed like 4 years. Then came the D-Day. The entire village gathered again at the palace of the king. The air was thick. Nobody smiled. The king stepped forward, holding his staff. Today, he said, we shall vote. The women will decide. An empty basket was placed in front of everyone, 2 calabashes beside it. Yes, for the men to continue carrying pregnancy. No, for the condition to be reversed. Each woman was given a mango. One by one, they walked forward. The men stood behind, breathing heavily. Some prayed, some trembled. When the last woman finished, the palace guard stepped forward and began to count. 1 pile for yes, 1 pile for no. The entire village held its breath. When the counting ended, it was a tie, a perfect tie. The men's hearts nearly stopped. The king lifted his hand to speak. Wait! A voice rang out. A woman stepped forward. Her name was Amaka. I have not voted. Mama spread. She walked slowly toward the baskets, and suddenly memories flooded her mind. Her husband shouting at her during her pregnancy, calling her lazy, refusing to fetch water for her, beating her because the soup had too much salt, saying, women exaggerate pain. Her fingers tightened around the mango. Part of her wanted revenge. Let him suffer. Let him understand. Let him cry. But then she remembered her son, her little boy, who was also now affected. He did nothing wrong. He was innocent. Her anger softened. Tears filled her eyes. I will not allow the sins of the fathers destroy the sons, she whispered. She bent down and dropped her mango in the no basket. The guards counted again. No had won. For a moment, there was silence. Then the men collapsed in relief. Some cried openly. Some shouted. Some ran to Amaka, kneeling before her. You saved us. Thank you. May your household never know sorrow. The king struck his staff on the ground. So it shall be reversed. Thunder rolled across the sky. A strange wind blew. And just like that, the pains vanished. The swelling disappeared. The boy's stain stopped. The village returned to normal. But something had changed forever. That night, no man shouted at his wife. No man mocked a woman's pain. No man said, is it not just to carry a baby? Because for 4 days, they knew, they felt it, they lived it. And from that day forward, whenever a woman was pregnant in that village, the men were the first to fetch water, the first to cook, the first to rub her back, because they remembered. And sometimes, when pride tried to return, they would look at Amaka, and humility would come back. But some elders say, if Amaka had chosen revenge that day, men in that village would still be pregnant till today. So if you were Amaka, Where would you drop your mango? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please support us by dropping a beautiful comment, liking, and subscribing to our channel. Your support gives us the courage to do more. I am Christy Midnight Tales. Till we see again in my next story. Bye.